Welcome to SVG-TV News for Tuesday, November 28th, 2017. I am Jennifer Richardson with the details. The Middle Eastern country of Qatar has expressed strong interest in hotel investment in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. According to Minister of Finance Camilo Gonzalez, who is fresh from his trip to the Middle Eastern country, the mandate of his government is to create developmental opportunities in all sectors. Minister Gonzalez said the Argyle International Airport, which was opened in February 2017, dovetails within a number of tourism projects, including hotel investment.
A hotel being built, Black Sands Hotel being built at Mount Win Peters Hope, and we're soon to reopen, soon to have Bucament Bay reopened early in the new year. That the government itself wants to construct a hotel of somewhere around 250 rooms, while of course trying to attract additional hotel investment. Qatar Hospitality was very clear with me that their vision for their first Caribbean facility is a good bit larger than 250 rooms, and that they would be interested in St. Vincent and the Grenadines for having, because we are essentially in their eyes virgin territory, that the best locations have not been taken by other hotels, and that they could brand and market St. Vincent and the Grenadines in a particular way. They indicated their very strong interest in partnering with the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines in hotel development, but for a room number somewhere north of 250.
Gonzalez, who is also Minister of Sustainable Development, said that while Qatar has expressed interest in the hotel sector, they are particularly interested in larger accommodations that can lodge more than 250 persons. Essentially,
the long of the short is that they don't make money at that point. They make money at a higher point. And because they are state-owned and Qatar Airlines is state-owned, they have a number of synergies between the airline, creating airlift to their hotels wherever they exist around the world. So we had some very fruitful, very positive discussions, but the ball is now in our court as they have requested some information from us about projected arrivals, about our wages, about our laws, about some of the locations that I discussed with them for potential hotel development. So we have tasked officials from the Tourism Authority and the Ministry of Tourism, as well as the Attorney General's Chambers, to provide that information. And Qatar Hospitality will be coming to St. Vincent and the Grenadines early in the new year to further develop those conversations about hotel development.
Strategic promotions as well as advanced project implementation will go a long way in bringing more benefits to SVG's tourism industry. That's according to the World Bank team leader and economist John Anderson, as he spoke at the launch of the OECS Regional Tourism Competitiveness Project at the NIS conference room on Monday. Anderson said SVG has a rich resource of tourism assets and encouraged the nation to utilize more strategic promotions to get the most out of these resources.
St. Vincent and the Grenadines already distinguishes itself with a very diverse tourism product offering. But more strategic promotion and regulation can further develop niche market segments of priority, such as diving, ecotourism. Developing these more diversified tourism products, including with greater linkages to the rest of the economy, can generate many development benefits. This taps into higher spending segments and increases the tourism revenue that's spent domestically and that benefits directly the domestic economy. This creates more space for new private investment in the tourism sector and the job growth that comes along with new investment activities and new business creation. Developing these types of products also importantly increases linkages, both between different tourism segments, strengthening linkages, for example, between cruise passengers and the nature, eco-based and cultural-based tourism assets that St. Vincent and the Grenadines has, as well as between the tourism sector and other sectors of the economy, strengthening domestic demand for the agricultural sector, the transport sector, for example.
Anderson further noted that SVG is a client of the World Bank, which provides funding in the area of tourism and encourage the authorities to make more use of the funds available. The World Bank representative also highlighted some of the benefits the funds can have on the local tourism sector.
Within the OECS, St. Vincent and the Grenadines is a key client of the World Bank Group. Our current portfolio across all sectors is $82 million US, mostly in grant resources, and this spans tourism, disaster risk management, and the ICT sector. Currently, only $18 million of that $82 million has already been drawn down and spent, reflecting the significant opportunity that remains to continue utilizing these resources and achieve the targeted results in tourism and in the other sectors. So I'll kindly ask the ministers and thank them in advance for their continued support to advance the implementation of the World Bank portfolio in general and of this new tourism competitiveness project in particular. Because the results that we are seeking through this project will ultimately contribute to a more competitive tourism sector here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines and throughout the region, and ultimately to a more resilient economy with greater growth and shared prosperity for the people here.
Highlighting one of the main objectives of the OECS Regional Tourism Competitiveness Project, that of implementing a ferry service between St. Vincent and the Grenadines, St. Lucia and Grenada, Minister of Tourism Cecil Mackey said, "Now more than ever, there is the need for a closer collaboration between the stakeholder countries."
The importance of the ferry service between our own mainland and the Grenadines and the added option of possible movement by ferry service between the participating islands is encouraged and indeed desired. The growth and the development of the various cultural festivals on the participating islands, as well as on other Caribbean countries, and the growing sporting fixtures among the islands demand that transportation options be also made available. This will no doubt call for closer collaboration between the security services, immigration and customs, among others. Strengthening the technology, moorings and anchorage, equipment, protocols, and appropriate systems will also be welcoming aspects of this project, as greater efficiency will certainly add to the visitor experience.
Prime Minister Dr. Rav Gonsalves has said that stripping Counselor for the Permanent Mission of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Sion Marshall, of his diplomatic post could have serious consequences. Joining his son Camilo Gonsalves at a media conference today at Cabinet Room, PM Gonsalves noted that diplomats have been clothed with certain privileges. The Prime Minister noted that once these privileges are removed, consequences could follow, as the issue is now a state-to-state matter.
There are persons I know who said, well, dismiss him up there, fire him. Persons don't think through necessarily consequences. If you terminate his employment, if that is the persons who make the demand, it means immediately that he no longer has a diplomatic status, and certain things may follow from that. But this country is mindful in its interstate relations and the praxis, the theory and practice of diplomacy, that our representatives must be clothed with all the requisite diplomatic privileges as are necessary and desirable for the conduct of civilized relations between states.
PM Gonsalves, who is also Minister of Legal Affairs, said while the matter is a serious one, waiving Marshall's diplomatic immunity could only fall under more heavy charges.
To say, some people call, why not waive diplomatic immunity? Well, they should study the consequences of waiving diplomatic immunity willy-nilly. And it's a matter which is reserved, clearly, very serious consideration in respect of offenses like terrorism, a serious case of money laundering, drug trafficking, murder, things which rise to a particular level. And mature minds have to reflect on these things, not just infantile impulses in relation to state matters. So I think that's always important to bear in mind. We are a young country, and we'll learn how to handle these things.
According to the Prime Minister, Marshall has not yet returned to the state, as he has to first deal with certain personal matters. And former Prime Minister Sir James Mitchell on Boom FM on Monday morning said the domestic incident involving Counselor for the Permanent Mission of St. Vincent and the Grenadines to the United Nations, Sion Marshall, and his wife, who is also a diplomat, brings into question the method used to appoint them. Discussing the implications of the incident, Sir James said, where offences are committed, there would be a history of it, adding that Marshall's appointment now will come under great scrutiny.
Held against you is something else. I mean, at one stage I decided, early in government, to wipe the record of people who had created offences 20 years ago and so on, because you can't have that damaging people, stopping from travel out of the country and that kind of thing. You see, both of these people in New York should be recalled, because it does not just stop there, The analysis of this exercise will go also to the method of his appointment and his selection, and what were the criteria that were used to select him. And judgment is not only going to be passed on him, judgment is going to be passed on the method of selection and what are the criteria of selecting such people.
Sir James added that such incidents do not necessarily affect SVG's diplomatic relations with New York. However, it is a source of embarrassment.
Domestic issue becoming international is not the same thing as the domestic issue that becomes an international incident, It is a marker will be there, and people will be remembering it. Same like if people still know about the parking problem with Camilo Gonzalez. When you get these names, people will recall it. It doesn't mean that that is going to affect our relations with the United States or anything like that. But nevertheless, it is a mark, and we got to be careful with it.
Is it an embarrassment to our country?
It certainly is an embarrassment. It is not as bad as a parking offense, but it is. It means that, we are a country with white beating, and to the extent that we have to legislate to stop white beating.
Giving an example of a diplomatic incident in which he took a swift decision, Sir James said he would have recalled Marshall immediately, adding that Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves and his government will be judged for how long they take to make a concrete decision on the matter.
Prime Minister Gonsalves is quite capable of deciding what he should do and when he should do it. If you ask me, I would have cleared the deck already. I would have told the guy, listen, either you resign and come home and let us look for something else for you to do, or in any event, the week is not going to pass with you up there. You better get ready to pack your bags. Listen, what I did with the Canadians, remember there was a time difference between St. Vincent and Europe, a difference of 5 hours. So at the time Jerry Scott called me and I went back to him. It was 2 o'clock in the morning, and I gave my instructions at that time for it to be done immediately within an hour. So Prime Minister Gonsalves, first of all, will find himself being judged, first of all, what were the criteria on which he made this appointment, and he will also be judged on what decision he takes, and not only what he takes, but how long he takes to do it.
The social issue of domestic violence, particularly violence against women and girls, is considered a serious concern here in SVG, and as part of efforts to effectively and efficiently address and if not eradicate this scourge, the government has put in place a National Commission on Gender-Based Violence, the NCGBV, to provide advice for such an effort. The commission, which was approved by Cabinet last Wednesday, November 22nd, along with the protocols and procedures for domestic violence documentation, is seen as a multi-sectoral approach in tackling domestic violence. At a media conference on Monday, Minister with responsibility for Gender Affairs, Frederick Stevenson, officially recognized the members of the commission.
Within the Ministry of National Mobilization, the Director of Social Development, the Coordinator of Gender Affairs, Director of Social Protection Division, Director of Child Development Division, the Chief Education Officer, the Commissioner of Police, Chief Medical Officer, President, National Council of Women, President, St. Vincent and the Grenadines Human Rights Association, President, Family Code, Honorable Attorney General, Director of Public Prosecution, and the Director of National Commission on Crime Prevention. And today, I'm indeed very delighted to, as the Minister who forward this memo to the Cabinet, to say how indeed very happy I am that we have gotten this far here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines in the establishment of this very important commission.
Minister Stevenson urged the commission to work together as their efforts must be unified if the commission is to work.
Would hope and pray that all the members of the commission would work very diligently and hard, because we understand the importance really of trying to work together to end gender-based violence in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, which over time has run out of hand. All of us would continue to play our part in ensuring that whatever we do, we help to make St. Vincent and the Grenadines a better place, a safer place for all of us to live. It is important that we start with ourselves. We start making ourselves safe before we can think about making others who want to come to the shores of St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
The Gender Affairs Minister further stressed the need to have more perpetrators of domestic violence be brought to justice.
I'm hopeful that to bring some justice and to put a damper on the spirits of some of these perpetrators of domestic violence and other forms of violence, sexual abuse and so on. We have to start making a serious effort to ensure that a lot of these persons are brought to justice and go before the court to be prosecuted.
Former leader of the opposition New Democratic Party, the NDP, Annie Eustace, is cautioning that an ill-disciplined approach may contribute to a breakdown of the political party. Eustace made this rebuff on Monday in relation to recent statements made on radio by Vice President of the NDP, Sinclair Leacock, over the party's senatorial appointments. In his reproach to Leacock on Monday on the NDP's New Times radio program, Eustace said that Leacock, who is a senior member of the party, should know better, deeming his statements as inappropriate.
The making of public comments that emanate from outside of the party executive, outside the NDP Parliamentary Caucus, and the other New Democratic Party organs is the right of those who express them. Those comments, however, that are made from within the party by senior members are most inappropriate. I wish to remind Major Sinclair Leacock that as Vice President of the party and a member of the Parliamentary Caucus, he is aware that opposition senators serve solely at the pleasure of the leader of the opposition. Any views he holds about Senator Barnwell's appointment can be shared internally with the leader of the opposition, and must at all times respect that the decision as to who serves as senator is the province of the leader of the opposition.
He said there are organs within the party to address concerns within the party, and that an ill-disciplined approach should not be taken to deal with such issues.
This undisciplined approach is contributing to a breakdown in the united approach that distinguishes the NDP from other parties. You just heard a recording a while ago where our leader addressing the JLP convention in Jamaica. While we at home are questioning his decisions. I will not be taking any calls during this program in relation to that matter. We are organs within the party to deal with issues of this sort, and that's the road we should follow.
Critical changes must be made in order to ensure the safe operation of omnibuses here in SVG. This was expressed by Inspector Henry Providence of the Traffic Department of the RSVG Police Force as he spoke on Magic 103.7 Sunday Brunch program last Sunday. Inspector Providence highlighted some of the requirements needed to operate an omnibus in SVG and expressed his concern in relation to the experience of some operators on the roads.
And there needs to be some serious revamping of the transport board, because at its present stands right now, if I am, the law says that at the age of 21 you can be given an omnibus license. If at age 20 I go for my age license, my omnibus license to operate an omnibus, 6 months after that I go and I get an age license and is allowed to drive a passenger bus with 18 passengers, 18 lives at stake, or even more. Something has to be serious, that has to be seriously addressed if we're going to go forward. There needs to be changing in regards to not just at what age you get your license, but your experience. Today you see one man on the bus as a conductor, tomorrow he's driving the bus. And that has to change first and foremost.
Providence said a route system is also necessary to maintain an orderly operation of omnibuses across the country.
It should not be just okay for you to just purchase an omnibus and you run it at Israel, and then when there's a trip to go Georgetown, you take a bus and go Georgetown. These buses must be properly routed. And I'm saying that if these buses are properly routed also, it would take away the whole issue of having this dog-eat-dog issue where they're trying to catch up with each other, are trying to run down each other. If there's a system in place where there's a lineup system, I know this is something that the Omnibus Association then was pushing for. If we have a system like that in place where the buses are routed and they are lined up in a particular way, that is going to take away some of the whole running down issue. This is going to take some of the dog-eat-dog issue. And we must see a more orderly operation of some of these omnibuses, and that needs to be done.
The police inspector said whilst the traffic department is a proactive one, there are some flaws in the current legislation in relation to noise and called for changes in this regard.
Myself, I haven't seen anything in the act where that's a noise act, where you could probably charge one person for music and musical instrument in their motor vehicle under the act. Except to say if for instance some persons maybe, and the noise act speak about noise in school zones, in the hospital areas and so forth. But again, and we have some little flaws in our laws and we have to accept that. But again, when the act is speaking of noise in this quiet zone, it is speaking of you using your horn. So again, we have issues and we continue to have complaints, especially from persons in the Edinburgh area. The bus that operates the Edinburgh area, we have spoken to the president of Noble, Mr. Bacchus, on the issue. We have brought in these drivers, all the drivers from that area, and we have sit them down and spoke to them at length in regards to what is happening in the Edinburgh area. So it is not something that as if the travel department is sitting idly by and not doing anything. We are trying our best to ensure that it is brought to some level of satisfaction, but we need the legislation to go with that if we're going to move forward.